Oh, how are ya? In my last video, of course, which was about Daniel 9, the 70 weeks of Daniel, somebody commented on, and it was on my German channel, about the Abomination of Desolation. And she said, oh, in Matthew, though, it says that this Abomination of Desolation is standing where it's not supposed to be standing. And so, did she want to question when this abomination is going to happen? I clearly showed in my last video that this Abomination of Desolation happened as a result of the end of the 70 weeks of Daniel. And really because the Jews, of course, did reject this new covenant. The covenant that Jesus made with them for a whole week. But they rejected it. He went to them specifically for half a week. And then the disciples went to them for another half a year. And they rejected it. And because of their rejection, the temple, Jerusalem, and the temple was destroyed, and they were again kicked out of the land. And so this is when the Abomination of Desolation happened. So Matthew 24 actually says that this Abomination of Desolation will happen before the destruction of the city, and they're supposed to be getting out of Jerusalem when they see the sign of the destruction, of the Abomination of Desolation. Matthew 24:15 says, so when you see standing in the holy place, so it's very obvious, okay? Holy place, temple, the abomination that causes desolation, that causes destruction. So what are they finding? Abomination that will cause the destruction, spoken of through the prophet Daniel. Let the reader understand. And then he's telling them, when you see that, flee to Judea, flee out of Judea into the mountains. Don't go down on your housetop and take anything, but flee. Do not let no one in the field go back to and get their cloak. And so, because dreadful it will be in those days for pregnant women and nursing mothers. Pray that the flight will not take place in the winter. So he's warning them, saying, when you see this abomination that causes desolation, and it's really interesting, who is that? That's the NIV, right? Let's go to King James to see what the King James says. All right, let's see. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place. Okay, therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place. Okay. Here it says abomination of desolation, not the abomination that will cause desolation, but just simply abomination of desolation. Interesting that NIV translated the abomination that will cause desolation. Yeah, we have to be careful with these translations. But obviously that's what will happen, and Jesus says, you better get going. Get out of Judea, get out of Jerusalem. Why? Because it will be a bloodbath pretty soon. So now this lady wanted to know, well, what is this? Is it because, see, the thing is, dispensationalism, and most people are influenced by dispensationalism. Most people, they believe that it's something that will stand in the temple. Okay? They believe the temple will be rebuilt, which it doesn't say that at all. This is talking about, and I will go into that in a little bit. This is talking about the second temple, and we're going to talk about that. This is not talking about the third temple or a third temple. It's talking about the second temple. The one that stood in front of Jesus and the disciples, and we'll see that in a minute. So they say when you see this, when you see something standing there that's not supposed to be standing there, an abomination, right, in the holy place, then flee. Well, what could that be? I am not 100% sure, and it doesn't really matter. Because what we really need to know, there is something not normal in the temple that doesn't go there. Okay? But the most important thing is that this temple was the second temple, not a third temple. Not something that the Antichrist will put himself into. Not a temple that will be built, you know what, at the end times during a 7-year tribulation. No, it's not what it says here. This is not the 7-year tribulation time. Let's look at that so we can determine what temple, because it says holy place, right? What temple is Matthew or Jesus, because Jesus was talking about it. So we're going to have to go all the way to the beginning. Then Jesus went and departed from the temple. What? The third temple? And his disciples came up to show him the building of the temple. Which one? Second temple? Third temple? And Jesus said to them, do you see all these things? Surely I say to you, not one stone shall be left here upon another that shall not be thrown down. What is he talking about? A third temple? I mean, everybody should agree with me that it is the second temple that Jesus was talking about. Disciples were in front of the second temple. I hope so. Now, as he sat on Mount Olives, which was after they were in the temple, the disciples came to him privately saying, tell us, when will these things be? And I'm going to stop here because it's very important that we stop here. When will these things be? What things? The things that will happen during the 7-year tribulation time, things that will happen at the end? No. He's talking about what he just talked about, the destruction of the temple. When will these things be? Then he said, and what will be the sign? Now, Matthew, again, people are going to scream. I know they will. Made a mistake here. Made a mistake because he didn't understand it. People are going to scream, oh, how can you say he made a mistake? Well, it's not correct. When we go to Luke and to Matthew, and you can do that, let's go to Luke. I want to do that because I have done that before, but I'm going to do it again, right? We're going to Luke 1:21, and then you can also go to Mark 13. I'm just going to go to Luke right now. But I think Mark has about the same thing. He says, therefore do not go, let me see now. It says here in 7. So it's Luke 21:7. Teacher, but when will these things be? Okay, what things? Well, he just talked about the destruction of the temple. No stone will be on top of the other. And what sign will there be when these things are about to take place? Are they talking about end times? No. They're talking about still about the temple. Unfortunately, Matthew, did he make a mistake or he just didn't know? Okay. He thought that when the temple is destroyed, Jesus will return, and therefore he ended this question with Jesus' return. Let's go back to Matthew again. I'm jumping around today. Sorry about my fingers. Okay? But you have to see, you compare Matthew with Mark and Luke, because that's why we have the various gospels, 3, 4 different gospels. So we understand it. Did he make a terrible mistake? No. We just need to understand. Okay? We just need to understand it better. So he said, unfortunately, okay, he made that connection. He said, tell us when will these things be, which is okay, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age. It's okay. Later on, he does tell you the signs of the coming and the end of the age in 29. But until 29, when the sun goes dark, he talks about what will these things be. The signs about the destruction of the temple. Now that temple is not during a 7-year tribulation. That temple was the temple that was standing in front of Jesus and the disciples. No doubt. Somebody said, well, but there's two, double meanings. No, there's no double meanings. There's not a double meaning. You show me where that has a double meaning, unless you made it up. There's no double meaning of that. That part belongs to the destruction of the temple all the way to 28, verse 28 in Matthew 24. Then Jesus talks about his second coming. Not before. So all those signs that tell us, okay, destruction of the temple, destruction of Jerusalem. And then he's talking about this abomination of desolation. And again, we have not defined that yet. What could that be? Some people, when they believe in this dispensationalism, they think it's like, there has to be this third temple, and this Antichrist will put himself in the temple. That's what they think. But that's a story, that's a fairy tale that somebody made up. It's not there. It's not in Daniel, so where do they find it? The only place where they can find it is maybe in 2 Thessalonians 2, where Paul is talking about the man of sin. But he's not talking about an Antichrist. He's talking about the man of sin who's putting himself into the temple of God. Now, according to Paul, what is the temple of God, or who is the temple of God? It's not a third temple, right? No, the temple of God, Ephesians 2, is the church, the bride of Christ. It's made up of what? Jews and Gentiles, or Hebrews and Gentiles. It's also made up of pre-Hebrew people. From the time of Adam and Eve, the temple has been built by Messiah. All the people, all the believers belong to the temple. to the time of the rapture, the resurrection rapture, when Jesus will return. That's how all the believers, all who trusted in Messiah. Well, don't think that only those people that lived after he died can trust him. No, the people before already knew. They knew that he is going to come. If they didn't believe that, they were not saved. Now, was that message out there? Yeah, the message was out there. If people really wanted to find it, they would have found it. And even those people that never found the message, God would have put it in their heart that they have to trust him alone. And then they still would have been only saved by him. So it's very clear here, very clear, that this abomination of desolation is something that happened in the temple. It says about standing, and I don't know if that's a correct translation. Something is standing there. What do you think can be standing there? There's a lot of things that happened during their time before the destruction of the temple. A lot of bad things happening. One of the bad things, for instance, is that Jesus abolished the sacrifices and offerings. And the Jews continued to offer sacrifices and offerings. Jesus died on the cross. All sacrifices should have been gone. When they continued, that was actually an abomination. People don't want to see it that way, but it is. That in itself is an abomination. When they continue to do the sacrifices, anybody ever complain, any of disciples, the apostles complain about the sacrifices going on? No, they continue to celebrate Passover when they kill the Passover lamb. But in reality, that is really abomination if you think about it. Why? Because they committed idolatry. Jesus already paid for the price. He was the final sacrifice. No more can you say, oh, these lambs are just as symbolic for Jesus, because he already did it. You continue, you desecrate the most holy place. But does anybody think about that? That is one way to look at it. There's other things that happen in the temple during the time. Now, what we know is Josephus will tell us a whole bunch of stuff that may have happened. It's the abomination of desolation. It could be just also simple desolation. Like, for instance, during the time before the final destruction of Jerusalem, these two factions, they quarreled. They had Jews had two leaders in Jerusalem that fought. These two groups were fighting each other. And during that time, the temple was actually also looted several times, I think. But we can find that in Josephus, Flavius Josephus, volume the Wars of the Jews, volume 5. He writes a lot of stuff that happened in the temple. Really strange things. Strange things. Yeah, one of them could have been Abomination of Desolation. Nobody just needs to sit in it and desecrate it. They desecrated the temple. You know, when they actually did started fire in the temple during these last days of the siege the Roman siege. And it was the Jews themselves. So a lot of stuff happened, and I don't think that could have been it, because it really says, therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel, the prophet, standing in the holy place, then go leave. Because see, the thing is, they couldn't leave anymore. At a certain time, they couldn't leave anymore without, being captured by the Romans and being killed. So it had to be long before the Romans even, went and put a siege on Jerusalem. That's when all the Christians, the disciples, the apostles, all the Christians left Jerusalem. They were gone when this bad stuff happened, because they saw something that was not right in the temple. But it happened during that time. Need to get some tea. Happened during that time. So yeah, even if you're saying, well, I don't know what that abomination of desolation is, we know when it happened. It happened before the destruction of the temple. Something happened. I think it's important that we read everything, in context. We see very clearly, if we really do the study, and I have done that before. If you knew, then of course you don't know that study. It's very obvious that what Matthew described here, and it's really what Jesus described. He described the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. That's what he described here. And he also the signs, that he wrote about, starting in where? Starting at 4. Jesus answered and said to them, take heed that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name. And that's what happened. That's what happened during Jesus, or right after Jesus' death. Many came in Jesus' name. Why? Well, because that was the time when Messiah was supposed to come. You understand? That's why so many came. Please, Josephus will tell you. And then you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. I just talked to you about, or I just told you, Josephus was writing in the book, the War of the Jews. How many wars did the Jews have? Go back and inform yourself. Read Josephus. Yep. Wars and rumors of wars. Nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom, famines, pestilence, earthquakes, various places. All happened. Yeah, of course that will happen later on. It has been happening throughout the 2,000 years of it, but it happened before the destruction of the temple. Famines, yeah, oh my goodness. Josephus was talking about when that stuff happened, the siege of the Jerusalem, that it was so bad, a woman ate her child. Pestilence, earthquakes. Oh yeah, lots of earthquakes during that time. And then they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you. They will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you. Yeah, the disciples, yeah, that happened. James was killed. Peter was imprisoned. Do you ever read the Acts? Acts? Many false prophets will rise. Oh, absolutely. Kingdom, the gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come. Now, here maybe people think, well, no, they didn't do everything. Well, they did the known world. The known world. They didn't know about America. Okay? But the known world, yes. And then it goes into the Abomination of Desolation. Okay? All the way to 28. For wherever the carcass is, there the eagle will be gathered together. And what is that about? That's about the carcass that was laying all over Jerusalem after the Romans were finished. Nobody was there to bury the dead. Nobody. Because the people that are left over went into captivity. Nobody buried the dead. The carcass were laying around. Okay? Read Josephus. But there's no doubt that this abomination of desolation happened before the destruction of Jerusalem. And that Jesus, specifically in Matthew 24, Luke 21, Mark 13, and Revelation, which is John's, right? Revelation 6, 12 through 17 is talking about no doubt. Well, no, I shouldn't say that because no, he didn't write it. John didn't write it. There's nothing in John. So we only have Matthew. Now John talked in our Revelation about the coming of Jesus. Okay? So he picked that up. But he didn't say anything about the destruction of the temple because when he wrote his gospel and Revelation, it was after the destruction of Jerusalem. So, therefore, he didn't have to write it in his gospel or in Revelation. It already happened. You understand? Already happened. He didn't put it in there. Why Luke, Mark, and Matthew? Because they wrote their gospels before the destruction of the temple. It's all very obvious, people. And we need to wake up. We need to wake up because dispensationalism has ruined most of people's thinking. And yeah, people. Wake up. Give me a thumbs up. I'd rather have you comment. Please comment. What do you think? Comments are very important. This is how I get my videos out there. People say thumbs up, but it's really the comments that move the videos and will give you more and more exposure. Share my videos. I understand people don't, maybe, I don't know if people have connection to other people, but share my videos. If you have a hard time sharing the gospel, then at least share my videos. And I know people don't want to listen. I understand that too. This world is dark. This world is extremely dark, and I think the United States is even darker. I always thought Europe was dark. But you know what? I have almost every video that I make on my German channel have 1,000 views. 1,000. And the German-speaking population is not as big as the English-speaking population. So what does that tell you? It tells you that maybe the United States is in darkness, great darkness. I always thought it was YouTube, but no. I personally believe it is darkness that has already overcome the American so-called Christians. Tell me what you think. Maybe I'm wrong. But anyways, let the Holy Spirit guide you. Always. Read your Bible. And I'll see you next time.